The gist is this. I lost my mom to a long-term health issue when I was 10. The cost of treatment drained my parents' finances, and it was just Dad and me after Mom died. No extended family. Dad started dating when I was 12, and he met Jane. After a few months, he told me her son had a form of brain cancer and was very sick, and that they were getting married and he'd be helping to take care of her son. We went from 2 in a tiny 2-bedroom house to 4 in a tiny 2-bedroom house, and me having to share my room with a terminally ill toddler I didn't know. We had to make so many changes. No more takeout, which was a once-a-month treat before that. I had to stop my one and only extracurricular activity. No friends were over because the noise bothered him. No space was just mine. No extra money for celebrating birthdays and Christmas. When I was 15, Dad and I got into a huge argument because I was never home and always said no to helping Jane take care of her son. When I told him how much I hated the situation, he looked me in the eye and told me to grow up. He also told me that I was old enough to understand that life wasn't always easy or fun, and that a rougher life could build character. He told me we grew our family, which was a good thing, and one of the consequences of that sometimes is having less, but it was worth it for the extra love. I told him that was BS. He told me that I was not his whole life, and he wouldn't stop doing what he wanted to do because of me. Then he told me to never say anything negative about his stepson because he was a kid and didn't need to know I resented him for being sick. After that talk, I was even more distant and left when I was 17, right after graduation, and couch surfed until I went to college. I graduated high school at 17 and turned 18 that October. I didn't stay in touch. Then when I was 19, I heard that my dad's stepson had died. In college, I met my wife and we got married this past June. Then in November, my dad showed up and told me he wanted to talk. I shut the door in his face. After that, he kept showing up where I was to talk. After getting annoyed with him, I agreed to meet him for coffee. He told me how he'd ended up divorced from Jane and how his stepson had died, and he looked disappointed when he learned that I knew. He told me he'd been struggling a lot and hoped I could help him out. I laughed in his face and told him he had some nerve. He mentioned how he'd spent a lot of money on finding me and wanted us to repair things, but he also needed my help. I told him no way. He became angry and told me he was my dad and was always there for me and I owed him. I told him I owed him nothing, and I threw most of his words back in his face, including that he needed to grow up and that he was not my whole life and would not stop me from doing what I wanted. It became a scene. He told me that I should have grown more compassionate at my age. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Your dad sacrificed you so that he could get laid. And as things turned out, the family he created wasn't all that real after all. Instead, he was just a patsy to help take care of a sick kid. You owe him nothing. The wife probably left as soon as her son was buried. I will say that it sounds like OP could use some therapy. Not because he denied his dad a relationship, but because that level of anger and resentment and those deep-seated abandonment issues don't just go away on their own. OP has been through a lot, and my heart goes out to him. I'm a mom, and if one of my kids died, I wouldn't want to stay married or be able to even look at someone who just threw their child away when I did everything I could to keep mine alive. Once the haze of it is over, OP's dad probably disgusted her, and she left him. OP, your dad quite literally showed up after he had nothing left but you. That's a huge red flag, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Yeah, your dad spent money finding you so he could ask you for money, and the finding only became necessary after he had nothing and no one left. He chose poorly. Stay no contact. This is a man who never prioritized you and just fed you platitudes. You're correct. You owe him nothing. I, 19 male, smoke all day, every day. It's just a normal part of my routine, and I don't see anything wrong with it. And this is not something that I want to be judged on. My mom is completely against me smoking herbs, and she's always telling me to stop. I believe that it's nature's medicine and that society oppresses those who use it. It has helped me in so many ways, and it upsets me that it's still stigmatized. My mom told me a few days ago that my uncle and younger cousins, a preschooler and a young child, would be over around 3 p.m. yesterday and asked me not to smoke that day. She always gets upset if she sees me smoking, so I didn't do it while she was at home. She went to the grocery store in the morning, and I figured it would be okay to blaze up in Mom's living room with the windows open before my cousins showed up. Well, as it turns out, my uncle and 2 cousins showed up early and walked in as I was smoking a joint and lounging on the couch in my underwear. It was a really embarrassing moment, and I'm sure my small cousins were shocked to see me like that. To make matters worse, they saw me coughing in a haze of smoke as they walked in. My uncle was upset, and he screamed at me for smoking in front of the children and being irresponsible. He told me that I needed to grow up and start thinking about the consequences of my actions. I could tell he was really disappointed in me, and the whole situation frustrated me. I know this was not a good situation, and I regret that my cousins had to see me like that. But here's the thing. I don't think I did anything wrong. My mom told me the wrong arrival time, so how was I supposed to know that my cousins would be coming over early? And I don't see the big deal about smoking in my own home, as long as I'm not bothering anyone. This would have been avoided if I had been told the correct time. Regardless of your way of life, your cousins are children and should not be around smoke. Your mom made it clear and asked you not to smoke on that day. You smoked. You got busted. You're the idiot. And you do need to grow up. Not because you smoke, but because you smoke all day, every day, and don't take responsibility for yourself or your actions. Exactly. It's not only that she didn't want the kiddos to see you smoke. No one wants kids to have to breathe in smoke for their health. Also, anything you do all day, every day is a problem. That's the definition of an addict. I don't care if you're doing pot or jogging. Moderation is important. You obviously couldn't even control your habit for one day. That's a really big deal. OP also seemingly lives with his mom and doesn't even have the decency to put on some clothes and smoke outside. Oh, and it's nature's medicine. If you need to take medicine all day, every day, you are severely ill. If you don't need medicine all day, every day, but take it nonetheless all day, every day, you're an addict. Grow up, OP, and stop being so horrible to your mom. She's also affected by the passive smoke all day, every day. She's probably walking around high all day, not realizing it. I want to throttle you, OP, for the absolute disrespect. I, 30 female, have a stepsister called Bella, also 30. Her dad and my mom got together when we were 16. Bella was very upset about her parents' divorce and was very hostile to my mother. So obviously, she and I weren't going to be on the best of terms. And as we got older, we just didn't bond. But I always got along well with her 2 brothers, Jake and Max, and we're still close. Over the last year, Bella's been reading a lot about psychology and is always bringing up what she thinks everyone else's issues are. She'll send articles about narcissistic parents, golden children, scapegoats, triangulation, etc., to our family group chat with messages like, "Sibling, this is you," or "Isn't this like mom?" their bio mom. Jake, Max, and my stepdad all say it annoys them that all she wants to talk about is the past. She's like this in person too. No matter how often we smile and nod, and sometimes even say that we're not interested in armchair therapy from her, she just says she has a right to express her feelings, and she's trying to start a dialogue. Part of her whole thing is deciding that her dad replaced her with me because she reminds him of her mother, and because he loves my mom and never loved hers. I'm his favorite/golden child. This all came to a head over Christmas when Bella noticed the family photos my parents had on a shelf in their dining room. She asked where the picture of her and her dad at her graduation was, and he said they'd moved it to make room for a picture of him and me and my mom at my wedding, and her graduation photo was now in the lounge. Bella scoffed and sneered, "Of course." Over lunch, I was talking about a photo shoot I was working on, and Bella chimed in about how our parents will probably replace more photos of her with ones from my photo shoot. I told her this makes no sense because the photos aren't even going to be of me. And she just said it didn't matter. She was invisible when I was around, and that I took her place in everyone's life, her dad's, her brother's, even my husband. At this point, I just snapped and said that that was an absurd accusation when she makes every family conversation about herself. While we all appreciate that she's deeply hurt by many things, we're all sick of being psychoanalyzed. I said that her obsession with me was ridiculous because the only person I've ever heard compare us is her. She needs to find someone qualified and appropriate to discuss these hurt feelings with and stop suffocating all of us with her feelings because we're all bored. Jake just started laughing, and Max shouted, "Thank God someone said it." But Bella burst into tears and left the table. She went home early and has since removed herself from the group chat and isn't talking to her dad or brothers. While I stand by the points I made, I didn't mean to isolate her from her family. So I'm starting to wonder if I'm the idiot. Not the idiot. Bella needs to stop reading psychology journals and see an actual psychologist, counselor, or psychiatrist so she can work through these issues within herself and with the family. Maybe once she does that, a family session can be had if y'all are willing to try and help her in that way. Homegirl needs to stop analyzing everyone else and analyze herself. Sis needs real therapy. She probably needed it when her parents split. That's on the adults, not you. She was the only girl with 2 brothers, then you came along. So instead of being upset with her parents, as some kids are when divorce happens, she's taking it out on you. Disagree. Everyone's the idiot here. Especially her father is a massive idiot. Her father for removing her graduation photograph from where it was originally and replacing it with one of yours when he knows how sensitive she is about being replaced in his life by you. He has not bothered to address it one-on-one with her or get her to therapy. She has trauma that has not been addressed earlier by continuously dismissing her hurt feelings. You have all aggravated it. Hopefully she'll get better now that she has cut herself from all of you. I'm glad someone mentioned that. Like if you know there are issues with your daughter and stepdaughter getting along, and your daughter's very vocal about you replacing her with her stepsister, I would think you'd think a little more deeply about things, like swapping an actual photo of your daughter with one of your stepdaughter. I, 54 male, have 2 children, 23 female and 21 male, with my wife, 52. When the kids were young, my parents set up education funds for both of them, which was very generous. However, my wife and I always expected our kids to attend college and then graduate school, as we have done. I have a PhD and my wife has a master's. Because of this, we decided not to use the funds for our kids' undergrad degrees and didn't tell them about the money. My daughter has always been more into liberal arts, while my son is more of a STEM guy. My wife and I worried about her ability to find a job, but she insisted on studying music and film in college. She was accepted to some top schools and chose to attend a rather expensive one, but she had scholarships to cover almost all of her tuition. Everything else, plus living expenses, was her responsibility. She lived in a small apartment shared with friends in a not-so-nice area far from campus, but she was fine and learned how to budget effectively. After graduating, she luckily found a job that didn't pay extremely well, but she enjoyed and scrapped the idea of grad school. My son decided to do engineering, and he also expressed that he had no interest in grad school. My wife and I were disappointed but accepted it, since at this point, he's already all set up with a very good job when he completes school. Since he didn't receive as many scholarships as his sister, we decided to use his education fund to cover his tuition and living expenses. He was able to get a large and nice apartment of his own close to the school, which is important since his classes are so demanding and he needs a comfortable space to work. My daughter was confused and asked how he could afford this, and he told her about the education fund. She called us and asked why she didn't have one, and we told her she did. We didn't use it because we hoped she would attend grad school. She seemed hurt by this and asked if there was any way she could have the money now. We explained that there would be a fee to simply withdraw the money for non-education uses, and if we chose to do that, it would belong to her grandparents, so they could put it towards their own use. She's been quiet and short when answering our text and hasn't answered our calls at all since then. I know that it seems unfair to her, but it's really not her money in the first place, and she's no longer in college. Plus, her brother only received it for educational purposes, and it wouldn't be right for her to just have it to spend now. Am I the idiot? You are the idiot, and I'm surprised between your PhD and master's degrees, you couldn't figure that out. Goes to show no matter how fancy of a degree you have, when you have room temperature IQ, you have room temperature IQ. So let me get this right. Your daughter attended college and had a scholarship. Your son attended college with no scholarship. You chose to not let your daughter use her college fund for everything that her scholarship didn't cover, and you let your son use his for everything. The college fund, you said, wasn't even her money, but it isn't yours either. What exactly do you plan to do with her college money? Probably give it to their son for a down payment on a house or something, because this house needs to be close to his STEM job. But the daughter can live in a dump because she needs to learn to live as a struggling artist/musician. OP, at this point, you need to grovel, unless you want to lose your daughter forever. First, you need to apologize for substituting your judgment on the best way to use the funds for your daughter's judgment. You need to make amends. Then you need to circle back and see what your parents' bequest terms were. And don't even get me started on favoritism. You used the funds for your son to enjoy a cushy life during his undergraduate studies, but didn't do the same for your little girl? Really? Seriously, if there was any doubt, you are the idiot, truly and completely. Update. Am I the idiot for not giving my daughter her education fund money? I understand the consensus is that my wife and I are the idiots. I texted my daughter to ask if she wanted us to withdraw the money for her and what she wanted to do. This was her response. I don't care. Maybe they can transfer it to other grandkid who's a kindergartner if the fee is seriously too much. I don't know about grad school. I haven't thought about it much recently. If I do apply, it wouldn't be for another couple of years, and I hadn't been counting on having any financial help in the first place, so it really doesn't even matter. Thanks for asking, though. My wife and I are discussing our daughter's response and our next actions to resolve this situation. For context, my wife has always had a strange relationship with my daughter and didn't approve of many of her life choices. She believes we should take our daughter's words at face value and assume she no longer wants the money. For some of the responses here, I fear that my daughter's response was out of resentment, and I suggested taking out as much money as her brother was given, so at least they receive the same amount. She could use it responsibly towards rent, groceries, transportation, etc., or in some other way to further her career, so it would still be for her educational purposes. My wife is firm in her opinion, and we'll continue discussing it tomorrow. Many have asked about where my parents stand on this. At this point, they're not mentally aware enough to really participate in the discussion. They did know about our grad school stipulation and thought it was fine. They also knew that we took out some money for our son once we were confident he was not pursuing an advanced degree, and we're okay with that. They said it was our decision as parents what to do with our daughter's fund, and they would support whatever we decided for her. It wouldn't be useful to ask them what to do with it now, but I've always said that whatever is unused will go back into their care. I've tried to call my daughter with no luck, which is why I sent the text. Despite what many have said here, I do hope this doesn't end our relationship.